Carlos and I are planning to take Esteban out to see the birds this weekend. They're supposed to be quite beautiful, with ruby red throat feathers and iridescent gills. Huh. I find this concerning. What is Night Vale without its mysteries and secrets? Just a place where people live and work and eat. Just an arbitrary location with people in it sometimes. No. Night Vale is more than that. It must be more than that. I am going to ask our town's preeminent scientist who, and many of you may not know this, is also my husband. Hopefully Carlos can help me understand what is going on here. I reached out to my husband. I had forgotten this, but it turns out that my husband Carlos, in fact, was once a faculty member at the University of what it is. I knew I had heard that name before. I asked him about Dr. Lubell, and he grew deeply concerned. He said, well, just listen to his message for yourself.
So Janet and I were grad students together. This must have been back in... Why can I not remember decades? I used to be able to remember decades. Living in a town where time doesn't work really does a number to that part of your brain. In any case, it was in a decade, and we were both just young and trying to prove ourselves. Janet was... she was this brilliant scientist, and she still is. I cannot deny it. But she's also, how do you say it? She's also very single-minded. When she sees a goal, she will just march right over any obstacle or person who stands in her way. And I admired that about her. But I gotta say, I also kind of feared it. Because, without the right ethical code, it's a dangerous trait. It worries me that the University of what it is has come to Night Vale. I fear that this will not end well. Oh, and... I'm so glad I remembered. This is very important, Cecil. I meant to tell you this at the beginning. Please, whatever you do, please remember to pick up ground turkey on your way home. Okay? I love you. Bye.
Ominous words and a helpful reminder from our town's leading scientist. Despite the heavy conversation, Dana looked and sounded healthy and happy. She said she misses seeing me and that we should do this more often. I agreed, and then she asked me not to tell anyone about this conversation. She's trying to keep a low profile. Of course I told Carlos, but he's my husband. That's fair game. I didn't tell anyone else, though. I'm nothing if not good at keeping secrets.
I created Night Vale, and that's why I wanted to come by. I've been trapped here in this town of my own making, and it's been really hard. Not because it's not a nice place. It's surprisingly nice here, in fact. It's been hard because I've been trying to get home to see my wife, Meg, and my baby, who I've never met and is more than a year old now.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. My husband and I went through a similar situation a few years back.
Oh, of course you did. I wrote that.
I tried to get Carlos to take Esteban to the lab, but apparently today they're doing a dangerous experiment and he doesn't want our son to get hurt. I'm not sure I believe that. I think Carlos might just want some time alone to work on his TikTok dances. He's obsessed these days with getting one to go viral, and he's putting a few too many hours into choreographing and filming these things. Oh wait, hold on. I have to take a picture of Esteban napping on the floor of the broadcast booth for Carlos. He's gonna love this. Finally, this one, Gustavo G. Why won't your husband speak out? We demand to know Carlos's involvement with these people. Silence is suspicious, Cecil. What? Despite our best efforts, science is continuing at the University of what it is. And not the good kind of science done by Carlos at his lab. I want to be clear on this. The science that Carlos does is that of beakers and numbers scrawled on chalkboards and those little antennae with the lightning shooting between them, and it makes that zap, zap kind of sound. That is the science of love and humanity. Science that helps and heals. But the science of Dr. Lubell? It's merely cold dissection. It is a rush to overturn every stone, no matter what delicate ecosystem might be living under that stone. The science of Carlos respects the mysteries of Night Vale, but the science of Dr. Lubell seeks to destroy them one by one with a weapon called explanation. Between the death of the Glow Cloud and the continued presence of the murderous staff of the University of what it is, Carlos and I needed an escape, so we had a little date night. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but we went to a magic show. Okay, so Carlos and I went to the new old Night Vale Opera House last Friday to see Makarov the Magical. He's apparently very famous. I was thrilled to get to see his show because I love to be lied to in a visual way. It's so exciting when someone makes you think that they can pull their thumb off and then put it back on, or when they convince you that there was money behind your ear, or when they say, "You got something on your shirt." Oh, they get me every time with that one. Makarov's performance was breathtaking. He knew every card that people were thinking. He made a rabbit disappear behind a sheet and then reappear in one of the loge boxes. He even hypnotized one of the audience members and got them to juggle flaming knives. All through the show, I kept leaning to Carlos and saying, "How did he do that?" And Carlos would just say, "It's magic, Cecil." No, for real, Carlos, you're a scientist. You must know the logical explanations for these tricks. But Carlos insisted they were magic, because it was a magic show. And, well, fine. The really exciting part, though, was we got VIP tickets, which allowed us to go backstage afterward and meet Makarov. And let me tell you, he was exactly like he was on stage. Serious, demonstrative, and mysterious. I asked if Makarov was his real name or his stage name, and he said, "Makarov, my young friend, is merely a sobriquet. Perhaps even a nom de guerre, depending on how the audience receives my performance." At this he chuckled, and I worried that it was because I didn't know what sobriquet or nom de guerre meant. I mean, I never studied Russian. Makarov continued, "My given name is Makarov. It is a beautiful name, but alas, I had to take on an alias, lest my patrons confuse who I am in life with who I am on stage." "Oh, yeah, that makes sense," I said, still nervous to be around a famous magician. Though Carlos looked confused. "We are different people," Makarov explained. "Makarov of the stage wears a cape, whereas I, Makarov, wear a cloak. He is a magician, whereas I am a man. He is an entertainer, whereas I am a performer. Do you see?" Then he lifted his hood over his face, twirled, and the cloak collapsed to the floor, and Makarov, the man and the magician, was gone. I clapped and asked Carlos, "How do you think he did that?" And Carlos repeated, "Magic." And now the conclusion to my date night with Carlos. Okay, after meeting Makarov, Carlos and I headed to the Moonlight All-Night Diner for a little post-show dessert. What better way to cap off a lovely evening than with a slice of invisible pie? But it did not go well. In the booth across from us sat a group dressed in all-white lab coats. They were talking loudly about the invisible pie. Each had a slice in front of them. There was one man in particular, very slight, maybe 5'4", thin build with a wisp of a mustache, yet a rich baritone voice. This man proclaimed, "It is scientifically impossible for any material the size of a piece of pie to be fully invisible. He then clanked his fork all over his plate. See? No pie, he announced. Wait till I tell Dr. Lubell why this is another fantastic discovery for the University of what it is. And all of his cronies clapped and cheered. Then I said, please keep it down. We're trying to enjoy our very real pie. Carlos scowled and said, Cecil, you can't reason with these people. No, stop it, both of you, Carlos said. He grabbed my arm. Let's just go, Cecil, he said. But Dr. Jones jumped in. Oh, hello, Carlos. I'm Dr. Blake Jones. We haven't met, but I was your replacement when you left the University of what it is. You were a beloved member of our faculty. You even had your portrait in the academic building. But then you got soft, Dr. Jones continued. You forgot what it meant to be a scientist, to do true research. You just stopped caring. Carlos didn't say anything. He just tugged my arm, pulling us both away. Dr. Jones called out, so they took your portrait down. The university can't celebrate failure, after all. When we got home, Esteban was already in bed. We paid our babysitter, and as soon as the door closed behind her, Carlos said angrily, I'm not angry with you, Cecil. I'm not angry. But he said this like a person who was pretty angry. Carlos cautioned that there are bad people in the world, even scientists, full of terrible ideas and actions. And the tragedy of it is you cannot stop them with a clever quip, a reasoned argument, and certainly not with violence. We can't afford to have you in jail or sued for damages, Cecil, Carlos said. And I agreed. I apologized for making a scene, and I promised to do better. And he smiled and said, now, about that dessert you promised. Ooh, Carlos, I said, does that mean what I think it means? And he said, if you think it means ice cream and a decaf, then yes. And I said, exactly. That's totally it. Oh yeah, Esteban's birthday is coming up, and Carlos and I have been wondering where we should have it. Well, the grand reopening is happening right now, so head on down to check it out for yourselves. And please, report back. I've been texting with Carlos to see if he knows how to stop a YouTube video. And everything he has told me hasn't worked. Boy, I'm a real bumblehands when it comes to tech. Because even if I exit out of the browser window, it just pops right back up, playing the Liminal Spaces compilation. In fact, every time I do that, the music on the video gets slightly louder. Why would it work for me, right? Okay, Carlos is suggesting I unplug the computer. Oh, duh, I have tried that right away. I'll just, When I last asked for a new contract, I didn't even get to see station management. I had an appointment that morning before my show, and I was nervous, but prepared to talk to them about my value to this radio station and community. But before I could even make it down the hall, the floor tore open. There was a burst of flame, and a crow about the size of a skateboard flew up and handed me a piece of paper. It was a contract. I had apparently already signed it. Then arms, many arms, grabbed me from behind. Someone put a hood over my head, and someone else injected me with something. And when I woke up, I was lying in the middle of the scrublands. My phone was dead, and my shoes were missing. I walked across hot, sharp stones for 20 miles until I reached my home. And when I walked in the door, Carlos and all my friends were throwing me a surprise party to celebrate my contract renewal. It was one of the happiest days of my life. But I never wanted to go through negotiations with station management again. Who's next to be explained away? Sheriff Sam? Dana? Big Rico? Teddy Williams? Me? Carlos? No. All I can say is if Dana truly did commit these crimes that are described, then she must face justice. But also, Dana, if you need a place to lay low, Carlos and I have a guest room. They will never find you there. And also because she's a scientist. and I think maybe we should run the scientists out. They don't deserve to know about my hat ideas. Thank you, Morris. But I do want to caution you all that we're not against science. Remember that we're all on the same side, which is against Dr. Lubell. But we're also on the side that science is good. As my husband, Carlos, says, science is objectively, empirically, and measurably very neat. And he's right. So let's love science, but hate the university of what it is. Yes, I am biased because my husband, Carlos, is a scientist. It would ruin him. But it would ruin everything. Science is so neat. It's the best. It's vital to teach it and practice it. You can't just outlaw science, right? Right? The teaching and practicing of science within the city limits is a crime punishable by a minimum 2 years imprisonment and $2,000 fine. Meanwhile, my husband Carlos, who's now without any scientific work to do, has been calling me constantly because he's so bored at home. He called before my show started just to say that this new ordinance hasn't stopped the University of what it is from practicing science while maliciously skirting the rules. He has said that he's seen Dr. Lubell's henchman, Dr. Blake Jones, all over town, wearing a variety of disguises. Carlos saw him buying coffee at the Spiky Hammer coffee bar, but Dr. Jones was wearing a pasted-on beard, a purple wig, and gimmick New Year's Eve glasses in the shape of 2009. Carlos saw him later that morning at Dark Owl Records, but this time with a bald cap, a fake mustache made out of electrician's tape, and a blue velvet chapeau. Carlos described Dr. Jones as nervous and chatty. And this is very shady behavior, and it needs to stop. Carlos has called me again. Gosh, he is so antsy without any science to do. He said the mood around town is weird. No one's talking to him, not even looking him in the eye. He can feel everyone's judgment upon him as a scientist, even though he's not doing any science at all. Carlos said he's doing his best to signal to everyone that he is neither practicing nor teaching science. He's wearing his Dare to Keep Kids Off Geology shirt. He's also forcing conversations about his lack of scientific curiosity, saying things like, "Well, hey there, Tim. Good to see ya." Not sure what these puffy, dark clouds could mean. Must be some very angry god. Or, "Hello, Maxine. Don't you think birds must be magic to be able to fly like that?" I sure do, because I've never given any thought to how anything works. Yet, he's still getting wary stares from his fellow citizens. And Carlos said he's tired of being cooped up at home all day, but, maybe he shouldn't be out in public either. Carlos, be careful out there. And Night Vale, lighten up. Our scientists have it tough enough as it is. What with all the physics and atomic weights and periodic tables, they don't need to be nervous about getting arrested at Target for reading the ingredients on a box of Cliff Bars. The past couple of weeks, I've been getting critical and sometimes even downright hateful emails from my listeners. And it all has to do with Carlos. You seem angry that I would protect a known scientist in my home, that I would defend this man on the radio, that I have evaded the fact that Carlos is an alumnus of the University of what it is. Here's one such: I don't protect Carlos because I hate your freedom. I protect Carlos because I love him. He's done nothing but be part of this town. His history with the University of what it is simply that, history. He's no more a part of them than you are. Carlos has put down his protractor, set aside his slide rule in solidarity with you, Morris, and with this whole town, because he loves it here. And I hope that you can understand that. I'm sorry, it's Carlos. Let me take this really quick. Carlos, honey, I'm on the... You what? You got arrested? Why? Why were you practicing science in public? Oh, they arrested you at the grocery store for calculating sales tax in your head? How did they know that that's what you were doing? Because you were singing your special little sales tax calculating song. Oh, Carlos, I always found that song so endearing, but now your cute habits have betrayed you. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Totally. Calculating sales tax is math, and math is hardly a science. True. Okay, Carlos, look, I'm coming to bail you out of jail. I'm pretty sure this was a case of the secret police targeting you and not a good faith effort to rid the streets of Dr. Lubell and her team. So, I think we have a legal fight ahead of us. No, I'm sorry, honey. I'll be there soon. This is a bad law you've created, but it's cultivated an irrational paranoia against good people. Good people like Carlos. And I am very angry at you, but I remain most angry at the University of what it is. They are our true enemy, not science. And I'm not sure you still agree, though, Night Vale. Okay, so I'm gonna go bail my husband out of jail. Oh, and I need to water Dana's fish, too. Unlike our local government, I support my loved ones. So while I go do that, listen to this song. On my way to the jail to bail out Carlos, I stopped by Dana's apartment to take care of her fish and plants. And inside I heard a noise. I ignored it at first, thinking it was just the wind or a mouse. But then I heard it again. It sounded like it was coming from the bathroom. Under the closed door, I could see the shadow of someone's legs moving about inside. And I should have been scared. But my only mood today is frustration. So I threw open the door and found a man wearing aviator sunglasses, bright red lipstick, and an admiral's cap. And I saw right through this flimsy disguise. It was none other than Dr. Blake Jones. I wrestled him to the ground and demanded to know what he was doing in Dana's home. He explained that Dr. Lubell needed Dana's DNA to test against the cadaver. And with a ban on science, she couldn't ask the sheriff for a sample, so she sent Dr. Jones to secretly steal some of Dana's hair from a comb or saliva from a toothbrush and bring it back to the lab. I knew it, I declared as I started to dial the police for his arrest, but Dr. Jones said, "Wait." And he began to cry and to apologize. He no longer wanted to do this. When I burst in, he wasn't stealing anything. He was just using this time away from Dr. Lubell to figure out how to quit, how to escape her maniacal grasp. She would ruin him, as she's ruined so many others who have left her service, the way she's trying to ruin Carlos now, not merely by destroying him, but by destroying everything he loves. Dr. Jones said he's come to love Night Vale too, and he regrets his involvement in the explanations of Sarah Sultan and the Glow Cloud. He was so sorry about what happened to my station management and vowed to work the rest of his life for forgiveness. He doesn't know if he'll ever regain my trust or anyone's trust, but he wants to help save Night Vale from Dr. Lubell and her vengeance. I paused to take this all in. It was a good speech, a great one, even, very well crafted and rehearsed. I'd been fooled before by this man, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. So I called Sheriff Sam and had Blake Jones arrested for breaking and entering and for practicing science. Meanwhile, my lawyer, Danny Vaccaro, did their job to perfection. They completed the paperwork for Carlos's bail so he'll be back home in time for dinner. Then she turned to Sheriff Sam and said, "Tell your city council that the University of what it is here to stay. You've brainwashed not only Carlos, but Blake, too. And I take that personally. You'll be explained to nothing, Night Vale. Explained away until not a trace of this town is left. And the lights above the Arby's?" Oh, the lights above the Arby's. Well, it doesn't matter what they turned out to be. They're gone now. And the memory of my first kiss with my husband is forever tarnished. Carlos has become bolder out of necessity. After his last brush with the law, he is no longer denying his interest in science. He has this message for Night Vale.
There's an old saying in science, and that saying is enough is enough. I can explain. What that means is that when there is a sufficient quantity of something, then you absolutely have to stop adding to it. And this town has had enough explanation for now, I'd say. So many words describing the background and purpose of every little thing. This is not the science that I know and love. This is the science of those who want the universe to be dreary, to be reduced to a prize that can be held in the hand. I explained this, so therefore I own it. It is time for those of us who believe in the science of discovery, of research, of humility, of using these tools to make our lives better. It is time for us to take a stand. It's time for me to take a stand. There is a stubborn problem that I must fix. A problem that is also an old colleague of mine. Dr. Lubell, we will speak soon.
Hello, Dr. Janet Lubell here, scientist, philosopher, great woman of history, etc. It seems that someone has forgotten who they are. Carlos, I know you. I knew you when you were only an upstart fellow grad student at the University of what it is. I knew you when you got it in your head that there was somewhere in the great deserts of the United States a town that was the most scientifically interesting community in the country. Oh, Carlos, the attention you got for this so-called discovery. Nonsense, though it was. I mean, you got headlines, right? You got grants, an entire research team for this fully funded expedition. Meanwhile, the budget for my own research withered away. You think it's easy to make super exploding eye measles? It's very, very hard and takes great science to do. But no, instead, the money flowed to Perfect Carlos and his perfect idea about a weird desert town. Well, look at me now, Carlos. I've explained most of this nonsense away. Your great discovery disappearing one piddling explanation at a time. And now, I have decided to finish the job. I'm going to explain you, Dr. Carlos Robles of the University of what it is. I am going to explain you right away.
No, she can't explain Carlos. This is a line that must not be crossed. This is not just my town. It is my family. It is my love. Carlos has left Nightvale, and I was like, sweetie, I thought you were going to make a stand. This kind of looks like you're running away instead. But he told me there was an old friend he must go to see, who was also, in a way, a new friend. And honestly, I could not understand most of what he was trying to tell me, but I do know this with a certainty born of years of love and trust. Carlos will see us through this crisis. He must. Because if he doesn't, well, I can't think about that.
Well, you're a brave man, Carlos Robles. I've never told you that because, well, it's never been true before. But it is true now. I'd say I'm impressed, but I make it a policy never to be impressed. Carlos, do you look out on the glorious world? This starship upon which an unlikely group of animals and plants are touring the universe? Do you marvel at the beauty and splendor of something so simple as rainfall in sunlight? Do you look at that and feel any sense of wonder? Then that's a lack of objectivity, and you shouldn't be allowed to be a scientist. You have been wondering, haven't you, Carlos? Out here where time doesn't work, you said. Where your friends include actual heavenly angels, you said. Where you spent 10 years trapped in a desert otherworld. Oopsie. Oh. That was supposed to be a secret, wasn't it? That the time worked differently for you there, and so you experienced an entire decade in that wasteland of an other world, hiding that truth from your husband and community so as not to cause them anguish and alarm. Oh, my bad. But discretion, in my opinion, isn't the better part of anything. Well, Carlos, if you aren't a coward, and for everything I think of you, I don't believe that you are a coward, then you will meet me at the gates of the University of What It Is Night Vale adjacent campus, where we can debate face to face, where my idea of science can be put against yours for one final test, where your family and community can watch as I completely explain you away. Sound good? Okay, great. See you soon. Hey, hugs and kisses, huh?
Of course, Carlos cannot take her up on this offer. There are limits, and my limit is the threat of explanation against my husband and the father to my child. Except, and yet, if we back down now, then where do we stop backing down, and what will be left if we do not risk ourselves for this fight? And Carlos must be thinking the same grim thought as he has sent me this message.
I speak now not to my adversary, but to my community. People of Night Vale, meet me at the gates of the University of What It Is. We cannot let ourselves be explained away, but neither can we live in fear. I want you to see two scientists meet face to face so that you can realize the danger here is not the manner in which we are thinking or the curiosities that drive us, but the human intention behind the thought. I seek to help with science. Dr. Lubell seeks to destroy. That is the difference between us. Although, I suppose today we are not so different. Because if I am unable to help Dr. Lubell stop her conquest, then I will have no choice but to destroy her. People of Night Vale, the people of this community I belong to, I will see you there.
You heard him. Carlos arrived at the gates of the University of What It Is, Night Vale adjacent campus. A collection of trailers and tents just outside of city limits. He arrived in a stylish, old-fashioned purple-striped jalopy. Trailing behind him was a glowing cloud, from which fell the bodies of dead animals. This was the child of the glow cloud. I just needed to collect my two friends, Carlos said, and here I was confused because I only saw one companion, but then his jalopy winked, and I realized it was none other than the shapeshifter Josh Creighton, who had brought Carlos back from his trip to retrieve the glow cloud. Behind Carlos, there gathered a more ragtag group, the community of Night Vale, or what was left of us after so much of our town had been explained away. They glared at both Dr. Lubell and Carlos, radiating hatred for the scientific method and all who practice such heresy. Carlos cleared his throat and spoke both to the University of What It Is and to his town.
I once said that science is neat. I don't know if I believe that anymore. Because science is really messy. It can be used for greatness, for love, for humanity, and it can also be used to other, to murder, and to mutilate. We want science to be something outside of, higher than ourselves, but it has always just been us. And so it is up to us what to do with science. Dr. Lubell has presented you with a vision of science that is colonizing, that is devoid of wonder, as barren as the Atacama Desert. And you've reacted against that with distrust and fear and anger. I understand that. But I'm presenting you with a different vision of science. And I hope you've seen that I've done so for my entire decade in your community. A science that is your neighbor. A science that seeks not to steal the stars, but to show them to you all the better. So I am asking you, my community, to trust me. To trust that the best way to fight science used for ill is not superstition or a retreat away from everything that we have learned, or to distrust all science. Science is a tool, helpful and dangerous. But we will use it only for our fellow humans, with the benefit of the least of us always in mind. This is the only true way to face up to those of us who use this most beautiful of human inventions against humanity itself. And I invite you to join me in doing so.
Well, I don't mind telling you I cried when Carlos spoke those words. Because we had been thinking about this the wrong way. We had seen it as us versus science, when this whole time we could have seen it as our science versus a perversion of science. And then we never had to look at Carlos or my family with distrust. And then someone did act, and it was no one on our side. Dr. Blake Jones, assistant to Dr. Lubell, her loyal henchman, who had tricked me so cruelly not 2 months before. He stepped forward and spoke in a clear, reedy voice. The scientist of Night Vale is right. Our former colleague, our friend, Dr. Carlos Robles. He speaks of science as we all once understood it, not as an alternative to humanity, but as humanity's greatest instrument. I say that the University of What It Is once had a higher purpose. To find out what it is, what all of it is. But we got waylaid. Now we merely find out what we can possess, what we can destroy. And there is only one person who can bring us back to our original purpose. And it is not this pretender that has led us to this disgraceful state, but Carlos. Carlos, will you be our new dean?
This is your move, Carlos? You get my own people to turn on me? You bring with you a car that can wink and a shiny puff of vapor functionally identical to one that I already explained away? No. Let me tell you, Dr. Carlos Robles, originally of Pomona, California. Let me tell you, Dr. Carlos Robles, who did his undergraduate in marine biology at UC Santa Barbara. Let me tell you, Dr. Carlos Robles, whose middle name, if I remember right, is inexplicably Dave. Let me tell you that nothing you have thrown at me makes even a dent in my confidence. Your magic tricks of shape-shifting 20-somethings and glowing clouds are no more impressive to me than if you asked me to pick a card. Every single one of my hypotheses are proven. You say that's not how science works? You say that's not how science works? I say that you're just worse at science than me. Now you're starting to understand. There is no defeating me. No trick to wriggling out under my thumb. I've gamed every gambit, foreseen every fumbling, sweaty strategy. You have lost. And now, Carlos, I will explain you away. You, Dr. Carlos Robles, were the son of...
And that's when the glow cloud dropped a dead cow on Dr. Lubell. The scientists, with Dr. Jones in the lead, stepped around the messy splatter of cow parts to approach Carlos. Dr. Jones said, "By the power vested in me due to the last person in charge getting squashed by a cow, I now declare you Dean of the University of What It Is, Night Vale Adjacent Campus." Carlos nodded seriously. "I accept," he said, "but I'm going to keep working out of my lab. I'm comfortable there, even though the sound level hasn't been great since Big Rico's Pizza added that animatronic band." "But our town is mostly gone," shouted a voice from the crowd. I did not recognize the voice, but it spoke for all of us. Maybe, even, it was my own. The voice continued. "You said that science could help us. So use your science to help us." Carlos nodded. Dr. Lubell did explain away most of Night Vale, but I have had a look at her explanations and they do not hold up to scrutiny. They are hasty constructions, full of pedantry, without rigor, and most importantly of all, not peer-reviewed. And one by one, I have been carefully debunking her sloppy debunking. Carlos waved his hand to indicate. There was the city council, back with its many voices screeching in terrifying joy, and Tamika Flynn in the middle plugging her ears and smiling, and the brownstone spire humming with indifferent violence. And here I shouted with joy because the lights above the Arby's, inscrutable sigils of invaders from another world, shone just where they had been those 10 long years ago when a young scientist asked an ancient radio host to meet him and to sit a while on the warm hood of his car. Finally, we all looked to the sky, confident that we would see an old friend returning. But we only saw the child of that friend, still glowing its many colors, still humming its bewitching song. I'm sorry, Carlos said to the child of the glow cloud. I wasn't able to explain that explanation away, I'm afraid. I'm afraid your parent is gone for good. I walked up to my Carlos, the new dean of his old university, and a scientist whose work would serve to lead us into the future, not turn us into servants of an inhuman future. What do we do now? I asked him. He smiled. First, we go home, eat meals together, remember that we are a community, and that we are better together than we are alone. He paused, narrowed his eyes, and looked out past the horde of scientists now under his command, past the corpse of a cow with 2 human legs sticking out from underneath, past the sprawling campus that he now had the job of incorporating into his lab operations, to the horizon, a wash of storm clouds and dust. And Carlos said, Then there is some research I would like to do on a desert otherworld. He smiled. Yes, I think there is still so much to learn about that place.